USA looks really, really strong.
USA all the way. I'm sorry, lads. The easiest prediction of my life.
But the USA are just looking too good at the moment. I'm going to have to go with the USA as well. I think it's kind of unanimous across the board.
I am actually going to be going with the United States of America today.
Yeah, to me before. No, not again.
Or am I? Oh, no, not even I'm dumb enough to go against the United States of America. USA all the way. Bless this country. I'm trying to get myself a green card. Let's go to the cast, golden boy.
Whether you liked their attitude or not, Team USA went into the Overwatch World Cup 2018 as heavy favorites, but as we all know, they horrifically fell flat. The entire analyst desk, as well as every expert I spoke to behind the scenes, when I went to BlizzCon, even people who were associated with the other teams in the tournament, said that USA and Korea were on top. Nobody expected UK to come in and beat them, which doesn't diminish the victory in any way, it elevates it. This truly was an upset. In this video, I want to use the power of hindsight to look to where USA fell flat. And note, when you do a video like this that's going to be critical of pro players' play, we all have to be honest with ourselves that playing perfectly isn't a thing any of us do, especially not you or I. So when we criticize some of the best players in the world, it comes from a place of wanting to improve. Also, they talked a lot of trash, so they kind of deserve it, let's be honest. Okay, with that being said, let's get right into it. The first major sin that USA committed is what I've been playing in the background thus far. Doesn't need to be broken down, I don't think. Hydration, playing Pharah. He's very good at Pharah. He may be one of the best Pharahs in the world. Take a mental picture of this, because we are not going to see Hydration play Pharah again in the rest of this series. Instead, at the first opportunity that they're given to make a choice either to stick on a counter 3-3 setup or to mirror the GOATS comp themselves, they take it immediately. Even when, frankly, charging up for an EMP Nano Blade would guarantee taking this point, they move over to the 3-3 mirror composition, which, by the way, isn't a terrible idea. 3-3 should be bad on defense, so if you mirror it on the attack, in theory anyway, you should be able to win out. But it requires you to play the 3-3 comp well, and it doesn't look good right out of the gate. We put Muma on Reinhardt, which, despite me saying he's an insane main tank, I thought that for his Winston play. His Reinhardt play can be a bit hit or miss, but even with that, this is probably the worst Reinhardt pin I have ever seen Muma take in his history of a pro player. I've never seen him commit to such a terrible pin. I mean, wasn't there an interview of Muma explaining how Reinhardt works, saying you basically should never pin? Well, this is exactly the reason why. You see, Team UK is bottlenecking the USA, forcing them to funnel into a tight choke. This is good because, as you can tell, all of the UK players can fight the same thing from the US. So in order for the US to get their guys in the back involved into the fight, Muma has to make space. But he does this by committing to a pin, and yes, they do time the bubble onto it, but that doesn't matter. They're still able to slam all their cooldowns into Muma. Kib not only gets the stun, it's the Lucio player Cruz, who's probably the most unsung hero on the UK squad, who gets the key boop to isolate Muma into the little mini health pack room. And this is just team fight over. The problem is, even if Muma gets a kill off of this pin, it likely goes the same way. And in a 3-3 mirror composition, unless both Reinhardts trade, if you trade your Reinhardt for just about anything else, you're still probably going to lose, in my opinion. When you decide to make a pin like this, you have to think, even if I kill the thing, am I taking the space that Reinhardt should be in? Even in the most ideal situation, I would still say he lands over by a wall to get focused down by the entirety of the enemy team. But hey, maybe that's just nitpicking one little mistake. You gotta keep in mind, this performance is coming after USA was able to hold UK at the streets phase of King's Row, which is a situation you should just never lose on the attacking side. But what happens from this point? Well, there's a bit of an ultimate clown fiesta. I'm sure if we took the time to look at every little minute detail about how these ults were used, we could learn a lot, but in short, both teams are trying to launch the offensive ults to try to get a kill, but the defensive support ults are equalizing out the damage. Everyone's surviving until that patented stun shatter play comes out. Notice how they peel back in order to set up for the stun shatter, and it feels like everything they do is just a means to an end to survive long enough until they land that combo. So that kills Muma, and there's just about nothing he could have done to stop that one. But despite Reinhardt going down, which in my opinion means wins the team fights over, Hydration sections himself off and pops Rally, attempting to go aggressive with it. It gets no value, and now even worse, Team UK has a Rally and they don't, which wins the next fight for free, and at this point, it's a bit more of the same. I don't think I have to belabor this point. USA isn't very good at the GOAT's mirror. Hindsight, of course, is 2020, and it feels wrong to criticize a game plan failing because there's only so much preparation can do. I would imagine that the GOAT's comp looked better for Team USA in scrims and practice, yielding them confidence to go into the mirror to be able to secure the 2 ticks that they had left to get. But whether with bad engagements, bad ultimates, and sort of hapless play altogether, not landing combos in the same way the UK was able to find, it's hard for me to not say, why not just stick to the counter GOAT's comp that they were running from the start? They come out on Sombra Genji, which, yeah, isn't great against GOATs, but you stack those ultimates together, they would have at least gotten first, I can guarantee it. Because you can put Bubble and Nano Boost onto the Blade while you EMP the GOAT's comp, and as long as you get a few of them, you're going to have a man advantage to be able to take point A. Or better yet, if you're going to swap to anything, why not play Hydration's Pharah again? We've seen what it can do to the GOAT's comp. What are you talking about, Frito? You don't know how counter picks work. Well, I know a region of the world who I think does. Here we see a bird's eye view of Fleta, one of the best DPS players in the world, and here they're even running Wrecking Ball, which I think is probably the most underrated GOAT's counter hero in the entire game. Especially from Fleta's point of view here, I think we really get to see what the ball can do to just knock the GOAT's comp back to set up for firing lanes for Fleta to keep raining down. GOATS wants to take space. If nothing else, Ball pushes them back and at least bobbles up for some shots for Fleta to hit. In the meantime, Carpe on the Sombra is hacking the D.Va, the only counter to the Pharah. This works like clockwork, and UK has to swap. They're not allowed to play Brigitte against this comp. It simply doesn't work. And Kib's Brigitte is going to destroy the USA throughout the series. It's hard to know that at map 2 when you've already won map 1, so we have to give them the benefit of the doubt to that degree. But as a butthurt fanboy, I'm allowed to dream. I think Hydration's Pharah would have saw similar success. And even with the opening they came out with, they only died due to a routing mistake. Let me show you what I mean. Do you see how Hydration and the mobility characters go to point? Start capping a tick, and UK does a very clever counterattack play where they go dive at the back line, clean them up, give up a tick, and then come back to brawl, forcing USA back. Well, instead of mass abandoning this strat, the map architecture of King's Row allows for ways for you to be completely safe against this type of thing. Of course, Team South Korea was able to see that match and adapt, but I think USA could have done this same exact thing where they send whatever squishy support players you're running that can be dove in this way through the theater. This is probably the most underutilized angle on this map. If there's stuff at the choke or enemies that are going to rush you down, go through the theater so you can get a better bead on where the enemy wants to go. And by the way, they look to set up this same exact backstab play into the backline where they wait in hotel and then go to rush, but Jonak is ahead on his rotations because of the information he has. He's got mobility teammates onto the point. Fleta over the sky is able to see where the enemy is, and Jonak is miles out into the distance, ready to come up into the window. By the time he gets here, he can see the hotel from this line of sight, and typically we're praising Jonak for his impeccable aim, but this is what's called a rotation. When you, as a slow character, sees that pressure is coming and are able to move in proportion to their advancement. So as the hotel rush starts to come through, Jonak rotates to a safer position to always be out of harm's way. This in effect gives Team UK nothing to fight because there's mobility characters taking the point who can run away if aggression comes their way. They try to go at Jonak, but he's already far ahead of them, escaping away. All the while, the Wrecking Ball is knocking things around, setting up for shots for Fleta, and they're just getting whittled down moment after moment. D.Va's the only thing that can go at Pharah. Well, she gets hacked trying to go aggro that way. There's actually nothing that the GOAT's comp can do against this. They have to swap. UK still ends up running multi-tank, but they take Brigitte out of the mix, putting Kib onto a Roadhog, which is still a very strong hero for him, but isn't as much value as a Brigitte can bring. And just in general, I think I need some advice from top-level pro players about why this isn't used more often, because you see teams come out on a map like Route 66, which in my head is this long-range DPS map, but instead they play a 3-3 mirror, going to the cart and brawling it out. Don't you think a Pharah would look really good flying up in the sky uncontested in a map like this? Why do we need the objective right away when we're on the attack? USA goes to point just to lose the brawl and die anyway. We're not moving the cart. I would have loved to see them do something they're actually good at and run the Pharah here. They want to stand on point and drain clock? Fine. Out-mechanic them if you are, in fact, the better team. Don't get any progress on the point. Just set up with Pharah, Sombra, and shoot until you get ult, pop Q, and win. And the only time they end up swapping to go to these DPS picks is in a type of situation where it was actually too late. This is now on the defense the previous round, where rather than do this early at streets, where there's a lot of space for the cart to take, giving you a lot of time to make these shots, they're doing it here when you have to brawl in the cart because otherwise they're going to get the checkpoint. Just like coming out of spawn, if the cart has to take forever to get down this street, you as the defense don't have to worry about the cart until it's at its last point. The Pharah composition here would have destroyed goats, because look how long it takes for this cart to move. How many Pharah rockets would have landed by the time that it's even getting to the checkpoint? You basically win for free. But swapping at the checkpoint is too late. Also, not so sure what I think about the Pharah Doomfist combination. I think it's very key that Sombra's in the mix, because if Pharah doesn't land her skill shots, you always have EMP that you're charging up, which will win the team fight. But also, the major counter to Pharah is D.Va, who has to go aggressive to go get the Pharah, and Sombra protects her from that. I don't know if this is a situation where Sinatraa doesn't play Sombra or what. If anything, if they were going to go to this, Zachary should have been on the Sombra, so Sinatraa can be the carry DPS playing Doomfist. You can't really have both of them, in my opinion. Okay, so that was map 4. We skipped around a little bit. I don't have much more to say about Route 66. It's more of the same of bad 3-3 mirror going on, but the map that USA undoubtedly should not have lost. On Volskaya, United Kingdom runs a lot of double sniper, challenging the USA to play compositions that should allow for individual skill to shine. This is what USA wants. And note, this was a very long game. There's a lot of good things to show from both sides on this map, but I think it's this round specifically that needs careful attention. You may have even seen Seagull break down this round. It's a clip that's kind of gone viral, I've noticed. And now it's a little bit of a famous meme to focus on Zachary and his inability to hit a few of these key shots in front of him, which likely would have won the point, if not in this team fight, definitely in the next one, sending the Mercy to spawn. But there's a lot of other things going wrong in this clip, and don't worry, I'll get to whining about Zachary later, but I don't think it all comes down to him not hitting a couple shots in this very small window. He's definitely at fault too, but the rest of everything that's happening isn't so hot either. We can see this when we look closely at Sinatra's play. He goes in against this Winston after getting body shot, and it's just by mere mechanical ability alone that he's able to sneak the health pack out from under him. Otherwise, he would have been dead in the first second of this team fight. As it happens, he's able to put a lot of damage into the Winston, and they finish him off. But at this point, Sinatraa has already used all of his resources to survive that duel. This is not a good time to go in. You watch any of the best tracers, they do not engage when recall is on cooldown. He's got like 1.5 blinks. And yes, Mercy was going for a res here, but as soon as Space successfully boops the Mercy away and she fails getting res off, I think Mercy players will tell you, the character doesn't do a whole lot in the rest of the fight. It's pretty much the threat of res that makes Mercy good and damage amp, but sacrificing your life to try to go get this healer may still have lost the team fight, even if they do secure that kill. And this is a tendency in Sinatra's play that I think we can confidently say is a major downfall. It's what made him struggle so much against, say, Bjolby last year in the World Cup. It's what made him have rather middling performance in the Overwatch League when he first came into it before I think Krusty was able to coach him up a bit better. But it's this tendency to put himself out into harm's way, to take damage when frankly he shouldn't, or really he can't. And the best Tracer players don't take damage in these situations. I emphasize this because we know what good Volskaya play looks like. Granted, This was from many metas ago, but it's not too different because we're still running Mercy on attack here. Mercy, Widow, Tracer, it's basically the same comp, the same strategies, and I'll tell you this right now, you almost never see an Owl level Tracer cross onto the point where the main angles of attack can shoot her. Doesn't happen, and it's by playing this map more disciplined that a team like the Boston Uprising, in my opinion, wrote the book on how to play Volskaya. Although, yes, they may have one of the best Tracer players in the entire world, they also were playing with, no offense, mistakes. This isn't his fault. He wasn't signed to play Widow, but one of the worst Widowmakers in the league. And they went undefeated on this map for the longest time, just by playing the fundamentals of this map properly and having an insane Tracer. Compared to how Striker moves around the map, he uses his blinks to bypass the lines of sight, not to get into them to try to clip down targets. Your life is always more important than going to get a kill, even if it is to try to deny a res or whatever. None of that matters. Sustaining yourself and the positioning you're holding on the team fight is always more important. And what Boston Uprising always did is when they were able to corral the enemy into the mega health room, that's where you win. You can go for cutesy little poke plays to try to make something happen, but largely you just want to contain them there and harass, but more importantly survive, so that your Widowmaker has time to hit shots. Because the team was able to pressure the defense back into the mega health room and then start pressuring point and be patient with the ground that they have won. Compare this to the way that Team USA was playing, it's just night and day. They're not playing to dive accurately at all, they're trying to go take duels, which is okay because they win the first two, but it's the undisciplined play thereafter that makes them fail. Here on the very next team fight on the re-engage, Muma goes at the Widowmaker. I really wish he used the grapple in order to get airborne so he could land a pile driver. Only way he's killing anything, frankly, but at least they force the enemy off the point. This is how you start winning on this map, but it's Sinatraa who gets his hand caught reaching in the cookie jar, trying to poke for too long, and gets blindsided by the Zenyatta that was coming back on the respawn from the previous fight. Instead of containing the enemy at the mega, extending the duration of their life and the number of shots that they're going to allow their Widowmaker to hit before any of them die, they're all forced to go aggro, and they're throwing Nano Boost onto Muma's Wrecking Ball, which does basically nothing, and it's just bad news all around. I think we can see this even better when we start to focus on where Zachary is. The entire team needs to be focused around setting up Zachary, and the fact that they're playing this way makes it seem like they don't know where Zachary is or what angles they're even trying to create for him. You see, he starts off this fight in halls because his team died in the previous fight. Remember, the enemy has double sniper. We don't have a Winston on our team. Zachary is at a massive disadvantage in these fights because he simply has less resources to work with. He has to play safer than the enemy snipers. So he takes this hallway window to try to crossfire on point. That's where the enemy was. We force the Winston bubble out on point. Then the team chases the enemy into Mega, which now, great, this is the angle we want. Zachary, it's your time to shine. Oh wait, that's exactly when Sinatraa dies. In this situation, we've given our Widowmaker about half of a second to hit a shot, and he does on the Winston, before we die. And then with a kill, this now allows for the enemy to go aggro on us as the Widow, throwing a Discord and a Winston leap. And because Moth went to Lucio on the previous fight after dying on Mercy, which wasn't an option in my opinion, we need the Mercy, Zach doesn't have the pocket either. So nothing about this team comp is helping Zachary out. Nothing about the way USA was playing set him up to succeed. Yes, he did miss some crucial shots that may have swung the team fight back, but at this point, I'm thinking like, just put Zachary on Genji or something. We're just playing all-out dive anyway. We've seen Widowmaker on attack Volskaya countless times. The worst thing you could do is fight when you shouldn't, rather than be patient to allow your Widowmaker time to hit shots. I'm not exactly sure what this is. Is it hubris from the team thinking that they can just W into the enemy and win? Are the expectations on Zachary too high? They think they don't have to give him any resources to work with whatsoever. I mean, nobody could heal him once this Winston jumps at him. Lucio's miles away. Ana's on the tanks. Zachary's got no lifeline whatsoever. And it's not as simple as, well, the other teammates got kills, what's Zachary's problem? Well, the teamwork just isn't really there. And this might be a stylistic difference because if you look to a team like Fusion University, they have, frankly, a lot better shot calling than Team USA did on the day. So he's going to be used to playing in a more reserved, careful system. And if you want to go this balls to the wall 2016 full-on dive comp, press W at the enemy style, it might not jive with the way that Zachary's learned to play the game. Like, for example, let's compare to this Fusion University match up against XL2 in the NA Contenders Finals. Granted, completely different map, different matchup altogether, but it's one of my favorite examples of a team waiting for their proper cooldowns before they engage. They get the Ana pick right away. If Team USA's in there, they're already Wing in and trading and potentially, honestly, losing this fight. But instead of rush the engagement after a pick, they get their cooldowns and also charge up for EMP Nano Boost to guarantee this fight. This is some higher level discipline to know that they don't have Ana, so they can't poke with us as well as we can poke to them, and instead of just jumping into them to potentially get stunned or a bash combination to kill someone, they wait for their ultimates, which, by the way, was an excellent idea because the Nano Boost gets pinned anyway. If you don't have the Nano on the monkey in that situation, maybe he dies, and all of a sudden the situation you thought was just a man advantage, press W to win, is now getting countered. I think the worst thing that I ever see in Overwatch gameplay is when a team thinks they have the advantage, so they feed. That's a very matchmaking way to play the game, whereas Fusions, in my opinion, is playing the game much closer to what Overwatch League teams do, which slows the game down to make sure that you do not let your opponent have any chance to make a play on you, because you have to respect the opponent, because at that tier of play, and up against Team UK, who was popping on the day, you can't simply jump into spots where they could land abilities onto you and potentially kill you. When you play this way to completely avoid giving your opponent any openings, the game slows down incredibly, and there's a lot of footsie games going on that to the untrained eye might look like nothing's happening, but it's actually both teams looking to peel, to parry for feints, and to try to threaten angles so that their Widowmaker can have angles to work with, which just flat out isn't what we're seeing out of Sinatra's play. But frankly, even as much as we're ragging on Sinatraa, he had a good series overall, and if anything, it was Zachary who had the rougher go of things when he was on the stage. He even admitted on Twitter it was like the worst he ever played, and we would talk about not respecting damage angles. I don't even know what Zachary's doing here. Just like the Muma pin on King's Row, this looks completely out of character from Zachary. I've seen him play Sombra, aside Who Are You, on Fusion University for many, many maps, and I have never seen him put himself out in harm's way as much as he has in these clips I'm showing on screen. It's as if he thinks Kib simply will not be able to hit him. And to me, the worst one of them all is this cutesy defensive anti-nade engage they go for right here. You can see from Raucus's point of view, hiding in a corner with the speed boost ready. They're looking to try to catch them at the choke to hit a big anti and go fight them. That misses, but Hydration, I guess, just doesn't get the memo. Everyone else retreats, but he stays in with the entire enemy standing 5 feet from him. You see the Hanzo pull out the Storm Arrow. He has to run. I think he just doesn't notice he gets shot, hangs around, doesn't recoil out, and gets wrecked. Though he does make a couple plays on Genji. Going into the last team fight now, you need one team fight to win it all. The enemy's got a Transcendence. You're farming up Nano Blade. 30 seconds on the clock. We're popping our defensive ult to sustain. The goal here now is to get positioning and poke for ult, but instead he commits in on the Brigitte and gets stunned and hacked and everything, so we're not even going to get Blade in this fight. We're forced to pop Nano Boost onto Muma just to sustain. Thankfully the tank ults get some kills, but reverse time a little bit here. Imagine if Zachary was just alive poking for his ultimate. Boombox has to pop Transcendence in order to counter the mines and sustain in the backline. If Zachary just doesn't hard engage there and survives, he's pulling out Blade around now, with or without Nano Boost, which might have cleaned up the whole fight. As it happens, he comes back on the respawn, now finally with Blade, but some kills were traded back. And again, I've seen this play 100 times. I've been this Genji, but I'm also not a pro. You go at the entirety of the enemy team with Blade looking for the kills. In hindsight, if he played closer to point, he could have just fought whatever was trying to stall and get kills without dying. But honestly, they have the rally popped by now. In any case, this Blade probably wasn't going well. And that's all I got for this video, guys. We really went into the series. I mean, everybody's got an off day at work, right? But yowza, some pretty rough Overwatch to watch. And it's hard to know exactly whether it was the hubris of the USA playing a bit too loose and liberal to assume they're better at 3-3 than they actually were, to not respect the DPS players of the enemy enough to avoid their sightlines and abilities, or maybe it was just nerves on stage, a lot of pressure put onto them by themselves and the community. I know I sure as heck don't want to be on that stage playing. so I can't imagine what it's like for them, but at the same time, it is their jobs. So I hope that these players learn from this loss and improve from this point. I don't think anybody is upset at the fact that they lost. It's more so how they lost that ended up being so surprising. If they played this way against Canada, they would have lost in the group stage. This series looked like a completely different team from back then. But Overwatch is a hard game, but that's also why we love it. If you liked the video and enjoyed it, please be sure to leave the video a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, please subscribe because we upload each and every day. So you're going to want to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.